we're back at the Cabazon Dinosaurs, better known perhaps as the Pee Wee dinosaurs, out here in beautiful, sunny Southern California, Cabazon, California, as a matter of fact, on the border between sort of the greater Los Angeles area to the west and Palm Springs and the desert to the east. I am stoked to be out here today because these dinosaurs are old friends of mine. Mr. Rex over here and, of course, his buddy Diney over there. Yes, that's right, Diney like dinosaur. Are not just familiar to me and every other 80s kid from the 1985 film Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which of course is required viewing for every 80s and 90s kid. And if there was any justice in this world, every kid, period. But these dinosaurs are also my old friend because, like I said, they mark the boundary between the LA area and the wide open deserts beyond. And if you're heading from LA or Orange County, where I grew up, out east to any other state, there's a good chance you'll be making that journey on Interstate 10 out there, which passes right by the very feet, sort of Diney and Rex. I spent 15 years in bands and traveling and touring around the country into various destinations eastward of California, and the Cabazon dinosaurs out here, or the Pee Wee dinosaurs as we always called them, was a required stop. And back in the late 90s, I mean, there was nothing else out here. There were far less buildings, trees, bushes, and sound walls on the freeway, and so these dinosaurs were visible from the highway for a long way in either direction. It was a major landmark, a major rest stop once you spent 2 hours in traffic leaving LA or Orange County. And so we'd stop here at all hours of the day and night, kind of celebrate sort of the first official beginning to each adventure. You always hoped you'd get here before the inside of Diney closed so you could go upstairs and check out that sweet dinosaur-themed gift shop up there with the Cro-Magnon men and human evolution on the walls.
Ironically sort of painted over when this place became somewhat of a creationist museum.
Still epic nonetheless. I can remember the days when you'd come up here before DVDs and mention Pee-wee, and they'd go, oh yeah, that movie?
Nowadays, of course, they're much more interested in embracing and capitalizing on their 80s movie associations, which suits me right down to the ground.
Star Wars? Weird.
Anyway, look at this place. It's awesome. Now, you may have asked yourself, as I have many times, how come in Pee-wee's Big Adventure they didn't come inside Diney here? And the answer is, I have no idea.
Having been inside many times, though, I can tell you confidently they also didn't film inside the actual Mr. Rex's head for two reasons. One, it's much too small up inside the actual mouth of Mr. Rex to get that beautiful sunrise scene like you got with Pee-wee, plus it's facing the wrong direction, and Mr. Rex wasn't completed and opened to the public until 1986, the year after that movie came out. As a matter of fact, Mr. Rex was never really completed in the sense that his original design, he was supposed to have a slide that came out of his back, and it never really worked right, and they closed him up for safety reasons. He had owls living up in his head for years. And by the 90s, when I would be stopping here with my tour van and my punk rock friends, you couldn't go inside of Mr. Rex anymore. So we'd run around in front of him and do all the lines from Pee-wee, Andy, and all that kind of stuff. But I never did get up inside of Mr. Rex myself until they opened that aforementioned creationist museum over here next door, which I don't know if it has the same owners, but is slowly morphed into Mr. Rex's Dinosaur Adventure. It is now morphed into pretty much your standard dinosaur-themed roadside attraction. Okay, actually, I completely take that back. There's nothing standard about this place after all. They've got Diney and Mr. Rex out here, Claude Bell's amazing multi-story concrete creations, which means they've got something out here that nobody else has anywhere else on the planet. And even though all dinosaurs may be awesome, not all dinosaurs are Pee-wee dinosaurs. Claude Bell, for those of you who don't know, was the portrait artist and head sculptor at Knott's Berry Farm out in Buena Park, California. And it was from running his portrait studio, which is today the Geode and Rock Shop out there, that he earned enough and saved and scraped up enough money to buy this property out here in Cabazon, and not just build these dinosaurs, whose construction, by the way, began in the 1960s, but also the once legendary and epic and now lost Wheel Inn. Yes, this dirt lot behind Diney's tail was once the home of a little roadside diner where you could get home cooking or a pie from the old pie case, or use the restroom, very important to my band back in the day, making this pit stop out here. And even more importantly to us, we could come inside and repeat the famous words of Pee Wee Herman. Large Marge sent me. Sadly, Large Marge's favorite diner is no more. It was bulldozed to the ground several years ago, although my friend Adam the Woo and I both got in here and did a little bit of filming before its destruction. We luckily got to collaborate on a Pee-wee's Big Adventure Ultimate Filming Locations video about 10 years ago before it was gone. What's crazy about this is the Bell family had an apartment upstairs, which we got to sneak into after the building was abandoned and closed down. For the longest time, they kept saying that there was a new owner, they were gonna reopen it, they were trying to give it historic status, but somebody came along and bulldozed it, and sadly the Wheel Inn is completely gone, except for the fact that miraculously, somehow, the famous eat sign has survived out here. Somehow. Every time I think about the Wheel Inn being gone, it fills my heart with sadness, but luckily, all you have to do is turn around and take a gander at these dinosaurs, and your heart is once again filled with joy. Hey, look at that, a dinosaur rump. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing that every famous touring musician of all time has stopped here at the Cabazon Dinosaurs. I've seen pictures of all kinds of artists out here. No doubt someone out there watching this has toured in a band either to or from California and probably stopped at these very dinos. For those travelers coming from the east, it was probably the first sign that you were nearing Hollywood. And for those of us living on the West Coast, like I said, it was your first sign, your first symbol, your first way marker that you were heading off into adventure, which is exactly what's happening to us today. We are also going off on an adventure today. Maybe not all the way to Arizona and all the way out of state, but we are heading off eastwards of here, about 20 minutes or so, into the desert for a little night away, not just back out of town, but also back in time. Just gonna spend a couple more minutes here enjoying the dinosaurs, and then I've got to find my little buddy Julio, and we'll make our way around the corner beyond the mountain towards Palm Springs. Oh, there you are, Julio.
Did you use the restroom? Are you feeling lighter, pal?
I know, it's glorious, isn't it? Gaze at the wonder of Claude Bell's creation. What? Aliens? What do you mean aliens? They're dinosaurs. What? Aliens again? I don't see any aliens, Julio. You're getting really paranoid in your old age. Julio, no more excuses. Let's go. You just sit there the rest of the drive and keep quiet. Oh, Julio, you bird brain, you old feather duster, you. Well, you may be paranoid, but you are my friend. I just can't stay mad at you. All right, time for us to leave the Wheel Inn and head down the highway to fabulous, wonderful Palm Springs, California. The old playground of the movie stars. Palm Springs was the hip happening place, a home away from home for the rich and famous after World War II. Which is why even cruising into town from the outskirts, you can see so many mid-century modern buildings. It was right during that heyday, Googie, the space age. And even today, Palm Springs is a haven for the rich, the famous, the trendy, and I may be none of those things, but it's also a haven for fans of that whole mid-century post-World War II era, which is why we're here. Because today, you and I, my friends, well, and Julio, of course, are rolling through downtown Palm Springs to enjoy our own slice of this mid-century modern paradise. Welcome, my friends, to the Caliente Tropics, which, as you can tell, is no ordinary motel. Would you look at the size of that beautiful A-frame? And would you look at the style of that glorious old-school palm tree carved tiki? And that, my friends, is the theme of the whole place, because the Caliente Tropics is one of the most famous Tiki Motels in Southern California. And even though I've stayed literally in the motel right next door, I have never stayed here. Something I always plan to rectify, and I am so stoked that today is the day. Look at this right here, this 8-foot clearance to get into the A-frame. I was worried the van wouldn't fit, but it made it, and we made it to this beautiful mid-century Polynesian paradise. Wow, check that out. The lines, the style, the swagger. And look at that beautiful mid-century lobby with the rock wall and matching stone tiki to go with it. Inside of there, they've got finches and parakeets and other tiki paraphernalia. And then out here, I didn't have far to go, because once I squeezed my van in through the A-frame, I just took the first available available parking spot, and it turns out that was the right move because my room is the very first room past the lobby on the ground floor, right here in the Easter Island section of this amazing mid-century marvel. Man, they always say there's nothing like a first impression. And my first impression of this place is to be blown away, and not just by the winds and the palm trees up there. I mean, on the one hand, it's just your basic mid-century modern motel, but it has so much tiki and so much history packed into a place with some pretty incredible scenery. Look at this. Look at this luxurious pool area. It is infested with tikis as far as I can see from here. I didn't bring my trunks, but I'm definitely getting out there in a minute. Oh man, not only did I not bring my swim trunks, I might need some new socks, because this place is knocking my socks off. It's not just the look and the feel of this place or the sounds. I can hear the soft sounds of Polynesian music drifting over the pool. It's the history. This place actually dates all the way back to the mid-1960s, but we're gonna get into that more in a minute. Before anything else, I want to check out my room. Oh, okay, you knew I was gonna say in my tiki room. Look at the ice machine over here, the stairways, the rock walls, the light fixtures. Or how about the ocean waves underneath our feet here in the concrete? Sort of feels like the water's coming on shore. But most of all, look at the incredible contrast between the Polynesian paradise below and those crazy stark desert mountains above us. As a matter of fact, far in the distance, way up there, you can see pine trees up on the highest peak. As Anne of Green Gables would say, there's a lot of scope for the imagination over here. All right, time to head into room 101. And boy, oh boy, look at what we have here. Oh, I already really like this. All right, first thing when I get into any hotel room, turn on all the lights, then rip apart the bed and check for bed bugs. I do that everywhere. That's no shade on the Caliente Tropics. Bed thoroughly checked. All is well. I am already loving this. I can already see several nice features, and I can tell you now I always look for in my motel experiences. Number one, it smells clean in here, which is very important in an older motel. Number two, bed linens are white, which makes looking for the bed bugs even easier. No bed bugs to be found. Number three, themed decor, mid-century modern curtains and furniture. Got your color television there. Mid-century lamp. Oh, look at that chair. Look at that chair. Oh, king in the castle, king in the castle. Very nice. There's a desk area, which I always appreciate for editing video. There are tikis and mid-century lamps in here. Well, okay, they're sort of like 90s looking, kind of goldish lamps from a typical furniture store. But in context, they sort of look like old 60s lamps. There's a refrigerator, always a necessity. There's a coffee machine. There's a room safe, which is pretty interesting. An air conditioner, very important. Hair dryer, important. Not for me, but probably for somebody. Most of all, in the throne room, we have a bathtub. Oh yes, a bathtub and a shower. That's the way to go. A somewhat recently remodeled bathtub, which is pretty nice. Look at the curtain. Yes, yes. We're going full tiki! Which reminds me, I gotta pull out one of these luggage holder thingies and get my bag, because it's time for a wardrobe change, courtesy of my good friend Mick Biff. Thanks for the birthday present, Mick Biff. How do I look? Pretty snazzy, pretty tiki-ish. Look at this, I fit in now. Weird. Wait a minute. I don't like fitting in. Darn you, McBiff! Also, I figured out I had not adjusted my white balance on the camera. Look at this. This looks a lot better now, doesn't it? Probably looked a little orange to you before, but you can see we've got these nice muted sort of vintagey tones out here. Everything feels very snazzy and very 60s indeed. And I'm stoked to be out here on the scene in Palm Springs. Now, haters are gonna say, well, it's not that tiki'd out in here. Maybe it's not mid-century enough. And anyone who would say that simply doesn't know their history. Because back in the heyday of motels like this, the outsides may have been themed to the nines, but the insides, and the inside of this place, looked something like this. Oh yeah, look at all that brown and gold and wood, and look at the other room here. Oh my gosh, look at the red carpet and
The red bed and just wood everywhere. Wood and stripes and flowers and wood. It's like everybody's grandma's house back in the 1980s. Yeah! Compared to that old rusty, crusty look, this looks wonderful. Let me tell you, I prefer this to the other way. Look, I'm a stickler for history. I like when they keep things as original as possible, but I must say, this looks a lot better than the actual way this looked in the 60s. Oh, by a mile.
And the 60s, by the way, is when this place was constructed. 59 years ago, when this motel opened in 1964, unlike today where it's known as the Caliente Tropics, it was known simply as the Tropics. The Tropics Motel, the Tropics Resort, the Tropics Palm Springs. Any of those will do it. It was one of several themed motels built throughout Southern California by a gentleman called Ken Kimes, who was apparently a very big fan of all things South Pacific, given that he eventually opened multiple Tropics motels on this theme. And when it came to his Palm Springs location, he truly spared no expense, building not just a themed entryway and pool area for his mid-century modern motel, but enough awesome amenities to truly make it worthy of the town of Palm Springs, which you gotta remember was a hip happening hotspot and home to the Hollywood elite, which is why they had a bar, a lounge, a steakhouse, a coffee shop, a gift shop, and more out here. All, of course, elegantly modern for their time, and sadly, all of which are out of business today, technically, but we do still have the buildings here. In fact, this building that today contains Sancho's restaurant, and over here in the corner, Le Fern, a new bar, once contained Sambo's coffee shop that was open around the clock, and by the way, looked like this. Oh man, if it still looked like that, I'd be in there getting a cup of coffee right now. And above and beyond the coffee shop, this building also contained the Tropics Steakhouse, so you get your fine dining done here and then head over to the lounge and bar, have a wild tiki time in the tropical pool, and then cure your hangover with a little Sambo's coffee shop at 5 a.m. All of which just makes me think, holy cow, the Tropics must have been wild back in the day when Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra and all of those people used to be frequent guests here, not just at the steakhouse, coffee shop, and by the pool, but also over at the bar, which we'll get to momentarily. At least I hope so. Now, if a restaurant and a coffee shop and an epic tiki pool area weren't enough, this epic A-framed entrance contained more than just the lobby back in the day, because in the lobby was another Tropics feature. You can see here in this old brochure, this area of the building used to contain a gift shop. And unless I'm greatly mistaken and confused by this old brochure, this is what the gift shop used to look like. You could get swimwear and dresses. Man, for those of you who love vintage stuff, I'm guessing you could shop in there for days. As you can see just from the dining options, this place was no ordinary motel, at least by modern standards. Most motels now, you're lucky if you get a coffee maker or a little coffee in the lobby in the morning. At a place like the Tropics, you weren't just getting a motel room to spend the night in and maybe some pool access, you were getting a whole experience. And as you can imagine, that's what they tried to give you today, but there were some years in between, my friends, where it didn't look so good for the Tropics. As with any epic fan, Tiki had his heyday and then went out of style. And so too did the old school roadside motels. There were a number of years where the Tropics over here was not the hip happening spot it was in the 1960s. It, like many other mid-century motels, became a haven for the indigent, the unsavory, for scoundrels and rogues, before thankfully, like many other epic roadside motels that we've been to in our travels over the years, it was saved at the turn of the century by new owners who recognized the potential in this old tiki beast, and bit by bit, one piece at a time, turned it back into a fabulous resort playground for those of us who like that mid-century flair. We like kitsch, we like tiki, we like our old school themed motels, we like tropical adventures and modernism. It's wonderful. It's glorious. The thing is, though, it's not a surprise that an old-school mid-century modern hotel or motel would get run down and then revived at some point, particularly in Palm Springs. It's happened with a number of historic locations. What is incredible about the Tropics, and what makes it special, is how much of the original theming has survived out here. If you've ever done any sort of mid-century tiki archaeology, or if you've ever just, spent a lot of time in Southern California and kept your eyes open or knew what to look for, you would have noticed that there are a lot of Polynesian-shaped buildings, a lot of old tiki apartments, tiki motels, almost all of which have completely lost their theming or their character, except for those weird pointed roofs. And if you're lucky, you might still get some old wooden beams, and if you're really lucky, some rock walls, maybe some old mid-century metalwork. Most of these places can be seen by their distinctive tall palm trees that you can tell are probably 60, 70 years old. But in terms of decor, in terms of thatch or matting, or especially in terms of tikis, by the time you left the 20th century, it seems that most of them had been left behind. You go to old tiki apartments now, you'd be lucky if you find an old stump that used to be a tiki, or an old pile of rocks that used to be a waterfall or a water feature. Here at the Tropics, I've only been here for a couple of hours, and I've already seen more tikis than I've seen anywhere since Don the Beachcomber closed in Sunset Beach. Oh, Don the Beachcomber, rip. It's very rare that any mid-century tiki property has actually kept any of its original decor and theming and tikis. Now, when it comes to decor, the Tropics doesn't fool around. Not today, and not in the 60s. Ken Kimes knew what he was doing, and he knew if he wanted to stand out from the tiki crowd, he'd have to go all the way with the tiki decor. Which is why when it came to tiki, he hired the best in the business. And even though construction began out here 60 years ago, I happened to be friends with the two guys that were in charge of outfitting this place. I'm talking about Bob Van Oosting and Leroy Schmaltz from Oceanic Arts.
This is my buddy Jordan Rychek's book about Bob and Leroy called Oceanic Arts, the Godfathers of Tiki. Jordan, among doing many other things with his life, runs Peekaboo Gallery, which is throwing Exoticon, a whole Tiki and Exotica festival this year in LA. But before Exoticon, there was Aloha OA, the sad closing but happy farewell party for Oceanic Arts, and of course the auction where they got rid of all those showroom samples from their epic warehouse of tiki that we visited many times. Well, Bob and Leroy had their finger in every tiki pie, and the Tropics was no exception. Look here, inside of Jordan's book, you will see so much about the Tropics Motor Hotels. This is where you learn that they had one in Blythe, Indio, Modesto, Pico Rivera, California, that's over in South LA, and here in Palm Springs. This is where many of our photos came from today. Not all of them, the rest of them Jordan sent me. Thank you, Jordan. Shout out to Jordan. But it's wild to think that 60 years ago, in 1963, Oceanic Arts sent their people out here to work on outfitting this place. And what a heck of a job they did. Sadly, last year we lost half of Oceanic Arts. We lost Master Carver Leroy Schmaltz, who was a wonderful friend. I'll never forget him. Well, Leroy was known as the Master Carver of Oceanic Arts and a Master Tiki Carver. And of course, with so many tikis on the property at the Tropics, you would have expected that Leroy had carved some of them. Well, no, friends, he didn't. It turns out that my old buddy Leroy was in such high demand at that time, and Oceanic Arts was so busy that they had several other carvers on staff, either full-time or pulled in as ringers. And Leroy, although many of his pieces are actually here on the property today, look at that canoe over there. That looks like a Leroy to me. Wasn't one of the guys carving tikis for the Tropics because the Tropics was an on-site job. That's right. There were so many gigantic tikis to create and carve with chainsaws for the Tropics that it was simpler to carve the gigantic tikis right here on the property. So Oceanic Arts sent two of its best, Eddie Chrisman and Milan Guanco, to actually stay out here in an unfinished motel room to carve these tikis on the property. And look at this guy right here. At the moment, he's at least an alley tall. That's at least 5 feet or so. But once upon a time, this tiki here was much larger. These guys were giants. If you look at this 1960s color photo of that very same tiki, now look at the stairs behind him, you'll notice when you compare it to the modern view, he's been cut down to size considerably. That's because over time, the base of these logs, they get rotted out by water or by the sprinkler system, by rain, just rotted away by the dirt, and so they get chopped down and down and down. But the crazy thing is, that is the exact same tiki right there, either carved by Ed Chrisman or Milan Guanco. This one's kind of on the line. Milan had a
very distinctive style. But so did Ed. This is kind of a tough one, probably an Ed Christmas. This is the very same tiki from that photo and from other photos from back in the day here at the Tropics. That's a survivor right there, folks. And it ain't the only one. Let's make our way into the pool area, shall we? Which, by the way, is sporting a sign right here that if Leroy Schmaltz didn't carve, it was definitely inspired by his typography. Look at that. Look at this right inside the gate as we enter here is this gigantic husk of a tiki, completely rotted out at the bottom, but fused in with this palm tree that grew up behind it. This was almost certainly a guanco. It's just got this very distinctive style in the eyes and the mouth, especially the mouth that reminds me of his carvings. He carved the tikis at Hobby City, where I grew up, and almost all of the tiki posts in the Dagger Bar at Don the Beachcomber in Huntington Beach / Sunset Beach. So basically, a lot of the tikis I grew up with, and this really, really looks like it could be his work, especially down here. Up here, though, the spirals, that looks very Leroy-ish, and Leroy, of course, worked with Ed Christman. So who knows who carved it? All I know is that's an epic survivor tiki right there. Civil War historians have their witness trees. Well, we've got our witness tikis. And it's so cool because you could see how the dry rod got his base, but he's just fused in there with a metal rod growing out of this palm tree that's clearly been here for a while. All right, now there's even more in this pool area out here, which, by the way, still has the very same hot tub that it had in the 1960s. These girls were keen to be in on the video action here, although we're carefully avoiding many other bikini-clad people out here, let me tell you. Several of which have been traveling to and from these little cabanas out here, these little tiki huts, which look relatively modern because they've got fresh thatch and bamboo, but look at this. You can tell they are actually ancient. And if you want to know just how ancient, look at this tall bamboo that's been growing out here for years and years. Look at this piece, which has grown up from the corner over there and was slowly but surely twisted around until it reached the outside on the opposite side. Weird. Anyway, lounging at cabanas isn't really my thing, but I come back here to show you something in the back of the lawn. Not only is there an old school mid-century pool umbrella, maybe one of the original from out here at the Tropics, but here's something much sadder. Another survivor, but this time not as much, has survived. That right there is all that's left of an old Ed Christman tiki. If that was in some kind of auction and was in one piece, if it was in one piece and in an auction, it'd probably be worth thousands and thousands of dollars. But to me, even though it'd probably be worthless to a collector now, it is priceless in the fact that it's out here in its original habitat, environment, and still a part of the garden, a fallen idol located back here by this waterfall, and the speakers playing the soft sounds of Hawaiian guitar, all out on this gigantic lawn where back in the 60s, when people used to do things outside of their rooms, you know, before air conditioners and cable TV and iPads and stuff, you would have seen families throwing balls around and playing games. Look at this game court right over here where there's still a ping pong table right in front of some more cabanas, the game cabanas, I guess. Julio took off to go get some fried chicken, but when he comes back, you believe me, we are going to be playing some ping pong. As for the actual vintage court, what was this game? What's this for? Shuffleboard? I'm not familiar with ground games. It ain't soccer.
Speaking of this court, look at this footage somebody sent me from 1963, the opening year of the Tropics. Look at those kids playing shuffleboard on this court. And if you notice in the background, this place was quite the colorful scene back in the day. Look at that. There are those mid-century umbrellas. There are thatch-covered roofs in the background. And oh my gosh, would you look at that luxurious pool area. Check out those breeze blocks that have long since disappeared. And if you'll notice in the background, so many tikis. And look at this. No A-frame over what would become the Reef Bar. This is an insane glimpse back 50 years or more into the past. And although the mountains in the background may not look any different, boy oh boy have the trees and shrubs grown up big time at this motel. Let's take one more look at that scene. Look at those tikis in the background. Look at them, all freshly carved by Eddie Christman and Milong Guanco. Crazy. All things considered though, this place is pretty much intact. Dude, look at this gorgeous place. Can you guys hear the wind in the palms? It's blowing from down off the mountains up there where the pine trees are. Got that late afternoon breeze coming down from those pine trees to the desert,
cooling us down, making it feel actually really nice outside. Again, air conditioning, cable TV, the internet, there's so much more for people to do. Back in the day, this pool would have been absolutely slammed, crowded with kids of all ages, splashing and screaming out here. In fact, there's one crazy character that's never left this poolside in all the years it's been here. And that's this old wooden survivor tiki over here. Look at him. He used to be a lot taller if it's the same tiki as the one in this vintage photograph right here. And this also looks like Milan Guanco to me, although I'm sure my buddy Jordan will tell me it's Ed Chrisman. I'm not a perfect expert on every tiki in the world and which tiki carver carved them, but this sure as heck looks like the Milan Guanco tikis I saw in my youth. Very, very old school. And again, although he's been somewhat cut down to size, it looks like he needs to be covered with, several thousand coats of resin to protect him for the future. You can see he's still surviving out here. Incredible. Now behind me, you'll see the Reef, the poolside tiki bar, and it has a long history. Actually, the Reef itself has kind of a long history, and I'm hoping to get to that later. Just ignore the beautiful tiki bar for a moment. We're still looking for survivors out here, and there are a few more left to find. First though, look at this. If you keep an eye out, you'll see many concrete tikis on the property that were created by this fella, Big Ed, the tiki broker. This is a very cool memorial for Big Ed, who just recently passed away. I think Big Ed was in one of my Tiki Marketplace videos from back in the day, from maybe 8 or 9 years ago. I got a couple of Big Ed concrete tikis in my backyard. In fact, Big Ed, if I'm not getting my Big and Crazy and Ed's and Tiki Guy names mixed up, is a guy who used to take some of the Oceanic Arts masks like this one and cast them in concrete. So many of his pieces are still scattered around Southern California, destined to last for ages. We're running out of time here. We got a few more survivors to see while there's still daylight. And these are the guys that Tiki Files get really excited to see, the survivors. You can see it's incredible the way the details of the carving have been preserved, even though the wind and the sand and the weather have done their work. But check this out. This is the best. All the way in the front of the building on the western side is the most epic, coolest, best surviving tiki out here of all. Check this out. Out here facing the street is an epic surviving structural tiki beam with 2 surviving tiki carvings on it. That's right. You got this little stubby guy on top that looks very Christmas-like to me. And down on the bottom, another one of those ones that's pretty hard to tell which guy carved it. The mouth is very Milan Guanco looking. And the crazy part is about this is there's an old photo of this very tiki in the Oceanic Arts book. And other than a little mouth breakage, you can see this guy has not suffered all that much damage. I mean, he's been painted. He's not showing that original stain or anything like that. Well, like I said, he must have made somebody angry with what he was telling him. That or a big old truck hit him, I guess. But the fact that this beam hasn't rotted away like many other tikis in Southern California, and not only that, is still here, structurally part of the building, holding up this post, that absolutely blows my mind. Dude, this place rules. There's Oceanic Arts history here, tiki history, roadside attraction history, theme motel history, all rolled up into one ball. Now, we're gonna wait for night to fall over our little tiki paradise, because I'm told this whole thing is a horse of a different color at night. Plus, at night, I'll feel like it's more appropriate for us to go peek in the last remaining sight we have yet to see out here, the Reef Bar. Oh boy, everybody who said you have to see this place at night was correct, because things really do look a lot different. It's just a few light bulbs, but really, it changes the whole scene. Look at this. Just like Disneyland, everything looks a little bit better at night, particularly if you have some colored light bulbs, which add an epic amount of ambiance, let me tell you. And extra magic bonus points, by the way. If to your light bulbs you can add fire features to the equation, because nothing says tiki like fire. Oh yes, friends, I'm feeling it now. I'm feeling tiki inspired. It's actually much darker than it appears on camera right now. We're having a long twilight out in the desert, but I couldn't stand being cooped up in that room anymore. Not when I could see light bulbs and tiki torches and survivor tikis. Not to mention hear some of the sweet sounds of Polynesia drifting over the breeze. I was actually just a minute ago in my room comparing some shots I got earlier on my iPhone of this pool area up from the second floor balcony over there to a 1960s postcard that Jordan Rychek sent me, and it's crazy how little has changed.
Oceanic Arts also had some pictures of this stone guy out here, who's also a survivor from the original days. I would have thought this was like a Big Ed piece or something modern.
Turns out this old rock has been around. What is it about tiki torches and palm trees and light bulbs at night and green pools that I love so much? I don't know. I think for me, it was growing up across the street from Disneyland Hotel and them having so many of these kinds of plants.
So many pools and water features, you know, it looked like paradise over there. But millions of other people agree with me, so it can't be that.
It must be there's just something magical about it. That's what?
I mean, just for instance, look at this. Look at this little jungly pathway over here with tiki torches flickering and tikis leaning out.
There's just something about a tiki carved a year before my parents were even born.
It makes it feel so exciting and exotic. Speaking of exciting and exotic, look at this hot tub right here. Oh, yeah.
I really don't like to get wet, like going pools and stuff, but I kind of regret not bringing my shorts now.
All right, gang, I'm feeling the inspiration now for sure.
It's time for me to level up beyond the pool area and into Caliente Tropics Poolside Bar. The Reef.
Notice all these concrete poles have tiki faces in them as well.
So many tiki designs, plus tiki libations await. Actually, you know what? Let's go around to the other entrance. I want to enter from the other side.
Because as cool as the pool side looks,
the Reef does have its very own A-frame entrance that we peeked at a little bit earlier. But I didn't dare to enter earlier because it seemed too early for cocktails, especially since I don't really drink.
Only on the rarest occasions.
A wedding, somebody's really important birthday.
And of course, when I'm on my friend Spike's Breezeway Cocktail Hour Tiki Drinky Show.
Almost never in the last 10 years have I drank an adult beverage alone.
Too bad Julio can't come in here. He's waiting outside.
No chickens allowed.
By the way, really quick, if we go the other direction towards Sancho's restaurant, I noticed from the outside a couple of things. Number one, they've got a jungle room over here with an old Whitco bar back there.
Very old school mid-century theme going on in here. Very Elvis Presley too. Jungle room indeed.
And just beyond the restaurant, which smells like delicious Mexican food, look at this. They used to sell these at Oceanic Arts. I believe they originated at Sea and Jungle.
I always wanted one of these, but they all fled in that last auction.
Oh, and look at this.
Rattan furniture in their little screening room with a Whitco Tiki and Martin Short. I love Martin Short. All right, let's head for the Reef.
We're running out of time in here, gang. Oh my gosh, would you look at that?
Wow, look at this, the old school bar, the lighting, the shrunken head back there, the bottles, the tiki mugs, the glass floats, the X-Wing fighter. I approve.
Dude, this is awesome.
Now look over here. Here's a little throwback. There's a sign for the Congo Room, steakhouse, and cocktail area. That's what was here back in the day. And the Congo Room is the place that Elvis Presley and his pals would hang out in. All those different celebrities in Palm Springs.
Oh, look at this, though.
This is way better. This is awesome.
Ooh, I spy a little more hidden Star Wars in here. I don't know why, but I love it.
Oh, look at this table over here. Look at Don Ho kissing all the ladies. And the Kon-Tiki mask. Oh my gosh, I see so many things that I recognize from the International Tiki Marketplace. So many cool little knickknacks. Such a cool mix. Modern and sort of traditional mid-century Tiki.
There's Boscos and barrels.
And look at these carved Tiki signs right here, giving you directions to other Tiki bars. I love all the different seating areas. Look at the shag Tiki back there on the wall.
I love these incredible benches over here. Those are so cool and unique.
I've never seen anything like that before.
Look at this. Look at all the food they've got here at the Reef. I wasn't expecting food.
There's more of these than I came for on the other side.
The Reef Libations. And this place was famous for a while for the Palm Springs Punch. So I think that's what I'll go with. Hey, is that Spike's Weirdo Land DVD playing back there?
Weird.
Hey, there's Spike right there. All right, it turns out they do have some non-alcoholic drinks in here, but unfortunately the Palm Springs Punch isn't one of them. And you know, I had to get the signature cocktail here, and look at it. If looks could kill, this drink would kill me.
It just looks that good. All right, I'm gonna try it right now. Not bad.
It's definitely not Capri Sun, that's for sure. Nice and tart and rummy tasting. The decor in here, dude, is so awesome. I've definitely seen some things that are 100% Leroy Schmaltz. I've seen a lot of other things that are definitely not Leroy Schmaltz. Even the back patio, though, looks so awesome. This place
It's pretty cool. A lot of Oceanic Arts decor.
lots of little bits and pieces that I recognize from other tiki markets and other tiki artists.
The important thing is there's a lot to look at, which is essential in a tiki bar. I'm just looking around and I asked, and the staff didn't know for where the staircase was that led downstairs
To what back in the day was called the cellar. Ooh, the secret bar where Elvis and his pals could get hammered. Hammerhead sharked. Yeah, dude, this place is definitely cool. Of course, it gets a lot cooler the farther down your drink that you get. Just remember, kids.
Those first 2 drinks are from your brother. That 3rd drink is from the devil.
Something we used to say out on the road. It was always true then, and I find it still true now.
By the way, I want everyone to know I have no aversion to adult activities of any kind.
My thing years ago was going through a horrible, depressing time period of my life, getting divorced and everything.
And I figured this stuff was never my friend in the first place, and I could either do it the easy way or the sober way. And it was probably for the best that I did it the sober way, so I put the drinks down.
I learned to live my life basically 99.9% completely sober.
I remember texting my drummer, Ben, who was always the total abstinence one in the band. Always sober, never drinking on tour or anything like that. Like, oh my gosh, your way is way better.
So, it's not that I don't drink. I just use that for shorthand. Sometimes I go, yeah, I don't really drink. I always throw that word really in there, for technical reasons.
It's just that I used to live a life on tour where I would drink all the time. All the time. Sometimes we get paid in booze. You drink for a whole month straight. And I've lived a life where I've been sober for 11.9 months straight of the year, and I prefer that life, honestly, between the two. However,
Having said that, this is pretty cool, and it's a pretty cool experience coming to a tiki-themed motel and going to a tiki bar in it. Which, like I say, the more I drink of this Palm Springs punch, the better it tastes, and the better the bar looks. Look at this.
wait a minute, what's in this stuff?
Is it me, or were there a lot more tables in here just a minute ago? Anyway, it's starting to feel weird being by myself in here, kind of alone, and with Julio trapped outside.
Stupid no chicken policy.
So I think we'll leave this half drinking. Oh no, it's happening.
The devil's elixir is in me.
I'm losing cognitive function.
Let's get out of here. Whoa.
Okay, by the way, just as I was leaving, my friend Spike from Spike's Breezeway Cocktail Hour texted me and told me to order the ambrosia from the secret menu.
It is ridiculously strong. It's also ridiculously good.
So this is definitely a winner. I spent a whole extra drink's worth of money to order this just to take a few sips, but I was coming here again, this is what I would order. So try the ambrosia, try the Palm Springs punch, it's the official drink of Palm Springs, and then try this. All right, let's head back to the room. Whew, let's get out of here. I'm too old for this stuff.
Or at least whatever immunity I had when I was young has disappeared now. Oh, my hat's crooked.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble now. Sorry, Julio,
What? Well, how was I supposed to know you'd stand out here the whole time? Why didn't you come?
Oh yeah, no chicken policy. You're right, you couldn't have come. Well, sorry, Julio.
Standing guard? Standing guard against what?
Julio, I told you, there's no such thing as extraterrestrials.
It's a bunch of malarkey, Julio. Okay, you can stand guard all you want to. Meanwhile, I'm going to sleep well.
My friends, I have had a wonderful tiki time with you, and this place, the Caliente Tropics, is one of the coolest places I have ever spent the night on the random in my life. Now, to be perfectly frank with you, the reason I'm in Palm Springs is for a secret filming project with an old friend of mine.
But I figured as long as we were here, we might as well go full tiki. And that's exactly what we did out under the moonlight tonight.
We saw historic tikis and dinosaurs. What else could you want other than to say, my friends, make sure to check out our online store, store.randomland.com. We got the Sometimes Vlog t-shirts and 10 years of Random Land shirts and hats
and much more. And there's, of course, the Patreon with all kinds of extra stuff and all the links down below. Remember, this show is sponsored by viewers like you. And now that I've said all that and we've done all this, we've done our duty. Time to motel and sleep well. Sayonara. Tiki Room. Welcome to a tropical high. What?
What'd you say, Julio? Turn on the light. I can't hear you in the dark. What do you mean, look out the window? There's nobody out there, and there's nobody in here except us tiki birds. Seriously, schmeriously. No one's after you. Julio, for the last time, nobody's following you, nobody's after you, and there's no such thing as aliens. Okay? Just a bunch of inebriated people from the Reef Bar. Now do me a favor. Lay down, relax, and go to sleep, man. We're in Palm Springs. Just a couple of bros hanging out at a Tiki Motel. Nothing weird about that. Oh, good night, Julio. Darn you, Julio, quit screaming. Oh, no, I don't want to hear any excuses out of you. Now, no more being chicken. It's time to hotel and sleep well, all right? Cover your chicken head with a blanket. Tiki Room.